Okay, so this is a new one for us. So that's the first time that we are doing a panel in the Collaboration Devroom. So we're going to try this year. Thank you for joining us. This panel will be about integration between collaborative applications. So the moderator will be Jos, and I will let the others introduce, maybe.
Yeah. Is this working? There's a button. Is it working now? Yes, it is. All right. Then I'm going to give this to you already, Ludovic. You get to introduce yourself first.
Okay, so I'm Ludovic. I'm the CEO and founder of XWiki. Well, XWiki is the company behind the project Cripad that was presented before, but also the project XWiki itself. And we've been doing open source for 20 years.
Hi, I'm Björn. I'm the co-founder of Nextcloud. We start out as a file sync and share solution, but these days we are a complete content collaboration platform. So you can do basically everything you want with Nextcloud. You can manage your files, but we have a group integration. We have many editors and viewers, text, video and audio chat integration. So everything you expect from a content collaboration platform. And maybe most important, which is also interesting for the discussion we will have here, Nextcloud can also serve as a platform, both to integrate stuff directly within Nextcloud or to use Nextcloud to integrate into existing other solutions, which I'm sure we'll also discuss here a little bit in the panel.
Yeah, hello, I'm Ingo from Univention, responsible for, let's say, technology at Univention. However, Univention is also in the market for more than 20 years, delivering, you might know, the open source solution Univention Corporate Server, which is focused on bringing open source technology easily to customers. And we recently released the core of our software called Nubus, which is an identity management solution. And identity management means you manage users, but the users need to do something. And so if we don't integrate with someone else, the users can't do anything. So integration is key for us.
Yeah, hi, I'm Wieland Lindenthal, co-founder and CTO of Open Project. And Open Project has been around like 13 years, 14 years. And we integrated with Univention, with Nextcloud, and we will integrate with XWiki. And we're also integrating in that sovereign workplace called OpenDesk. I see people from OpenDesk over here as well. So the topic of integrations is very deep in on the roadmap of Open Project. By the way, Open Project is a collaborative online project management environment, and it runs in your own servers or in our cloud. And so we also do the hosting. Yeah, let's get started.
All right, thank you. So I'm Jos. I'm also from Nextcloud like Björn, so I don't have to explain what Nextcloud is about anymore. It's not only the first panel here, but it's also the first time I try to ask questions in the panel, so bear with me here. I always think answering the questions is easy. Just debating it with Björn, what is the easiest? We will see. So open source is a lot about collaboration. I think it was interesting the last couple of talks there was a project basically building this syncing engine where you can just point it to a folder and then with different text editors work on it. And they were building on these different libraries and tools that they, found open source on the internet. And I think this is one important component of like how open source works, that a lot of projects are, using libraries to integrate into their own products. And for example, at Nextcloud, we have the Nextcloud text editor, which is built on, I don't know the name of the underlying library. You don't know either, right? But, sometimes you take a library somewhere, you build it into your product. Yeah, and this happens, of course, all the time. So that's one way of kind of having a collaboration. But there are other ways.
TipTap.
TipTap, yes, exactly, that one. So, but there are, of course, other ways, right? Sometimes you have something like Collabora or Open Project, which is a huge thing on its own, which actually integrates many of these other things by itself. And yet you want to be able to exchange data with that, like for us at Nextcloud. And so that's an entire different level of integration and collaboration. And so that's what we wanted to talk a bit about, because in this room, of course, there are tons of projects that are integrating and collaborating and building things that are, as the previous speaker said, maybe why is there a new protocol? So I think it's just interesting to go over these different, levels of collaboration, integration, etc. So I'm just going to fire off the first question, and then any of you can, who's first basically can try and answer it. So how is this around competition basically? How do you see the role of collaboration versus maybe competition also between projects? Like how can project balance that? And if you're willing to give that a shot?
I can go with a simple one. For example, Open Project has file management in the light version, like attachments to tasks. And you could say that we're doing something similar as Nextcloud, but actually we're not. No, it's like it's ridiculous. Or Nextcloud is doing something smaller task in a deck for Kanban style task management, but in the feature richness, it can't compete with Open Project. So it makes sense to work together and ignore those little tiny places where we are competing, and instead build something greater that is of more value in total and can really compete with the real challenge, which is the big tech. And so I usually I don't see so much competition, but maybe the competition for project management software in the open source field is not as big as maybe, I don't know, for other players.
I really like the example, and I can only add on that. And but I would like to add on a higher level. I mean, we are all have parts of our solutions which are similar to each other. I think each one of you has a user management, and we come there with a user management. But it still makes totally sense to have a decision. If you want to build a solution, you have a decision, what's the leading system? And then the others integrate with that. And each one of us is better in something that they can lead and that they can provide to a solution, and then integration makes totally sense. And the other level I wanted to add here is that I think only we are all growing companies, and we represent a few hundred people here, I think, but still that's small in terms of IT industry, and so we can only grow together. We can't solve everything by our own.
No surprise as well, because I mean it's also a really nice example because it exactly shows the thing here. I think that's the big advantage of open source. We don't have to compete with each other all the time. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but we can build upon what's already there. And then, of course, we can give our users the choice so that they can use the best thing they need. If they use Open Project because their main task is project management and they just need a small place to store the files, then feel free, go with it. Other way around, if Nextcloud users are more interested in the Nextcloud features and just need a small task management, then let's go with our deck solution. They don't need Open Projects. And then we have users, of course, who need to have the full power of Nextcloud and need to have a complete project management. And then we integrate with each other, and then people can use the best of both worlds. And I think that's one of the really strengths of open source, that you have all these choices and we can collaborate because all our code is open, our communities are open, there are no borders between it, and I think that's the big power of open source.
Yeah, I think, I mean, clients tend to push you they ask you, oh, I would like this additional feature in your software. That's actually a bit outside of your core, the core benefit of your software. And so you end up doing this little extension that start doing that. This is how we ended up having tasks in XWiki. And actually, for some stuff, it makes sense. There, in a wiki page, people love to have to-dos. But the to-do is not a project management tool. It does project management, but it's a very light project management, and so it makes a lot of sense to have a to-do in a wiki page, but it would be also very interesting to connect that to-do to a project management tool. So, and so, in the end, you don't really compete because you're not going as deep in the subject of each of these needs, and it takes a lot of time to go deep. And as you mentioned, the real competition is not the other open source people. The real competition is the big tech, and if you look at what the big tech do, they go seriously deep in each of the tools. So they're going to go very deep in Office, very deep in project management, very deep in files, very deep in wikis, etc. And so we need, as open source people, to provide a very good alternative that will go very deep on all of these subjects. And each of us also needs simple tools that go very quickly in the market, and so that the customers can still take them, even if they take the big tech on the other side, so that we can penetrate the big companies with software. Most of our clients, we didn't sell them where there is Nextcloud. We sold them where there is Microsoft, and they didn't like the wiki of Microsoft. They preferred the open source wiki that goes deeply in the subject of wikis. And so we never really competed with other open source tools, actually, and the opportunity to actually work together is much bigger if, as an alternative to big techs, and that's actually what OpenDesk is now, look, if we all put everything that we did together, and if we connect them well, then we're going to be able to just say, look, just get rid of Microsoft or Google, and you can just use open source altogether for everything.
So, several of you brought up open source. Like, being open source, Björn said, like, it means lower barriers. Can you maybe elaborate more? Like, why, like, if we're all proprietary software companies, wouldn't we maybe also have an incentive to integrate? What does open source make a difference there?
First, I think because the community and the code is open, so we can go to each other, can go to our repositories, can provide pull requests, can really work together with the developers. That's something you can do with non-free software. The other thing I would like to challenge, actually, the assumption that the big tech also have an interest in working together. In my experience, big tech most of the time have the interest to isolate each other because they want to grow their silo as big as possible. Maybe that's a good point to tell a bit of a funny side note. There was a few years ago, I gave a talk at a conference, and I presented Nextcloud's federated sharing feature, which allows you to have many different Nextcloud servers, and you can share freely across the instance, no matter where your server is. And in the audience, there was someone from Dropbox. And they came to me after the presentation and said, this was a Dropbox developer back then, told me, wow, that's super awesome. We at Dropbox should implement this API as well. We should also implement this federation. We exchanged context data and said, yeah, we definitely have to talk afterwards. Guess what? We never talked. Because he was an engineer, of course, he liked the technology and the idea that we can integrate. But probably he got back to his bosses and he said, no, that's not our interest. We want to grow our silo. We want that everybody uses our solution. We don't have the interest in having this. So I would actually challenge this assumption a little bit. Maybe someone else want to add something?
I remember, for example, when we started the Nextcloud integration like 2 years ago or 3, I don't know, for quite a long time already. And I remember that we were willing to invest. Like, we were willing to put people on that work and wanted to have that integration. And I remember that Nextcloud was saying, sure, go for it. Something like that. So, and being open source helped us. We could simply get into the Nextcloud code and extend the Nextcloud code for what we needed. No, there were definitely stuff missing that we needed, and we could simply build it, and it could be, let's say, one-sidedly, the development could be pushed, right? Do that with Microsoft. Ask them for the code and ask them, hey, could extend that a little bit with an app or something like this. It's yeah, SharePoint apps exist, but they don't allow all that stuff. It's not as free. So it really makes a difference if both need to agree to take the initiative or just one part. And I think here it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, what I was in addition thinking was open source drives you to do the right thing. Because if you don't do the right thing, someone else will take the code and will do it. So it's a different thinking than drive to maximize the revenue. So we also need revenue to pay our developers and so on. So that's not the point itself, but we have to think about do the right thing. And integration is often the right thing to do because things are already there. There are good solutions. Why not integrate instead of build stuff on your own? So I think that's really a different thinking.
So I think we have to think a bit about what the situation is on the big tech side. I mean, it's massively cloud services. You massively can not install them anymore in your company. So they decide what goes in the cloud service. They can turn on, turn off features at any time. So I mean, I've seen Google being open with Google Chat, which was XMPP at the beginning, and overnight they stopped it, and it was not compatible with XMPP anymore. Slack was IRC compatible, closed IRC compatibility. So when they want to adopt users and get people, they open their APIs, they make APIs open, they let people connect, and at some point they say, oh, that's not in our interest anymore, we just close that integration. So they can be very open in, oh, here is my API, you can put plugins for my app, bring me value, bring me value, bring me value to my app. And then at some point they say, look, now I build an app that is a competitor to you, and I'm going to advertise it so much that nobody will ever see that there was an integration with your app. That's not happening in open source. I mean, yes, you could do the same thing in the package that you build, in the software that you build and stuff like that. You can bundle more stuff as the open source provider. But in the end, the customer is king, and the customer is choosing the bricks. And if he tells you, I'm going to use this brick, I will want to deactivate this one and this one, with open source, he can do it anyway if he really wants. And he will push you as a smaller company to actually do it. And if he wants to integrate, if he prefers to take this brick for chat and this brick for files and this one for wiki, he will be able to do it. And if an integration is not done, technically he can even do it himself. So you have this freedom that keeps all the vendors honest about what the power they have towards the market. This is not what's happening in the big tech side.
No, absolutely. All right, thank you. I think that's really, interesting points there. So each of your projects then benefits from these integrations. I mean, clearly, could you elaborate? Like, what does this mean in the market? Does it help you? Does it help you in sales? Does it help you in how you're perceived? Is there collaborative marketing benefits? Like, how does this benefit you as open source companies?
And maybe I can continue on that. So first, first, just talking about the fact that we work together is super beneficial in the market. I think open source needs to show that it's stronger with multiple companies. And so, for example, when we started working on OpenDesk and with Nextcloud, I mean, it clearly made us much more credible in Germany. We're a French company, and the people in Germany say, oh, look, if these German companies are talking about this French company, maybe we should look at what they do. So first, it gives you credibility, the fact that you talk about each other and that each company is saying, like, oh, look, this software is also a good one. So that's the first value. Then there is, of course, the technical value of the integration. So typically with Open Project, and this is a big reason why we want to integrate strongly with Open Project, we're going after Conference plus Jira. And if we want to migrate all the conferences in the world to XWiki so that we can get many more companies, actually in a significant amount of cases, if there is no solution to migrate Jira, it's not going to happen. And so we need Open Project to actually do it. So, and if it happens, and if we have the integration, then we will be able to tackle that global solution and to get more users on top of XWiki. So I think that's true. These integrations are heavily demanded by the market. So I mean, I had a discussion with CIOs of French company, and they say the main reason we use Microsoft is because it's an all-in-one, well-integrated package for us. One buyer, one people to buy it, one guy to say when we're not happy, although probably it has no effect when they're not happy. But one people discuss one contract, one thing, up everything, the integrations are there. It's simpler for them. They want simplicity and reduce complexity. And so we need to have that too, and if we do that, then we're going to get more customers.
At the end, I think it boils down to what you said before, the customer is king, and that not only is true for the customer, but also was probably more relevant for the audience here, the users, because open source not only cares about customers, but also, as you all know, a lot about the normal users of the software. So we all, of course, try to provide what the users want and need for their daily work, and that's just how we are driven at the end. So in the introduction, I said that Nextcloud is a complete content collaboration platform, so we can do a lot of stuff. And there are a lot of customers and users out there who like it. They like it that maybe not each of the module is the best possible one in the world, but it's really everything in one platform, nicely integrated. And then that's great. And then we have customers and again users who say, no, I want to have the best possible file sync solution combined with the best possible user management, the best possible knowledge management, and the best possible project management, just to pick the example which are sitting here at the panel. And then we say, of course, then that's why we're integrating with them, and that's why you can use this puzzle pieces, or you exchange just single file components out of it. And at the end, I think we are all acting to what the market, what the customers and also the users want, because as you also said, Ingo, that's also the truth about open source. If you go in the wrong direction, people will just fork you or do something else and use something else. So I think that's where it boils down at the end, and that's why I think at the end, it's beneficial for all of us. Also, if we take different paths, at the end, it's all beneficial because at the end, we together can serve what the users, what you need, and this makes us happy, and this makes you happy, and that's the best for all of us at the end.
I can only add our own solution here because integration for us is key. I said that in the introduction because integration is actually the pain point that makes user use and identity management. If an organization grows, they can't explain the user that they have 5 different accounts for 6 different applications. And so integrating them is key, and that's what we do. So that's actually our job, integrating on the initial level, and the initial level is the user needs to have access to each application, and afterwards there can be a functional integration where things are exchanged, data is exchanged, and so on. So without the need of integration, you don't need an IAM.
Yeah, the question was about if we can integrate in marketing and sales and all benefit from the integrations on that field. And yes, of course. The obvious thing is like, hey, show me your clients, because we have clients and you have clients, and the clients that book subscriptions with Open Project, they probably share the same values and expectations of the software as your clients do. So if you can get to our clients and we can open the box and you can open your box showing us your clients or helping us to get in contact with them, it's much more likely to get a conversion done in that area than if it was with Microsoft. The values are not shared the same. Like someone who's used to, I don't know, writing notes in a Word document might not be on the same level of, or might not share the same values or be triggered by the same stuff as someone who would do this in Collabora online on Nextcloud. Yeah, they need to tick differently. So yes, of course, there's a huge opportunity, and I think we should use that much more often, to be honest. Like, but we're on the same panels, we are going to the same conferences, but we share the same bed. No, we don't. But I think it makes sense to appear together and also to show that we really mean it. Like we want to make it work together, and we are trustworthy in the combination. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's how we benefit. But of course, well, as we talked earlier already, like how the users benefit. So now I want to ask, what's next? Where are these integrations going? Like you already mentioned OpenDesk, but there are also one-on-one integrations. There are other places where we collaborate. How do open projects evolve their collaboration? And will we have more projects joining us? Like next year, if we want to do a panel, are there 20 parties who could join? What's next?
Yeah, I have the microphone. I will start. As I already said, we as identity management, we want to have integrations, and having integrations is actually something that we are very open to, and we are currently in the phase of initiating something that we call packaged integration. So that makes it, the idea is to make it very easy to integrate some application with our identity management system. Because integration also always means we need some configuration, you need to create a trust. We already had that in other talks today, which is very relevant and was very interesting. And we want to make that as easy as possible so that not only environments where our technicians are available can have these integrations, but everybody should be able to have that, because it's otherwise the whole story doesn't fit.
For me, yes, of course, we want to integrate with more applications. Just because of the reason that I just said, to join forces and to line up. But the problem here that I see is we need to tackle the basics first, right? Just from the technical perspective, how to integrate into single sign-on and then really have a single sign-on experience where the user doesn't need to know, wow, now I'm in Nextcloud, now I'm in XWiki. New users don't care. They don't want to think that, like, okay, if I account in this application or that application, they expect one experience, they log in somewhere, and then they can work. And for this to be able to work, we need to have quite a lot of basics of technology available to make this user session really be seamless between the applications. And when I look around in our current software solutions, everyone has implemented something, some part of it, right? And that makes it really, really hard to really get the first level of integration done. And if we all together would agree on a couple of open standards and implement them to a degree that is decent enough, let's say OIDC, token exchange, SCIM for the user provisioning. If we can agree to these ones, then the second integration would be so much cheaper, and we can focus really on really the use cases that these two applications together make. So this is my call for let's synchronize more on the standards and spend the time of it, spend money on that, and then the next integration will be so much easier, and we can focus on the real fun parts.
So you're saying there's a technical layer to be built to enable more integration between different open source projects?
Yes, let's be honest. Integrations, they sound really reasonable, but they're very, very hard to implement. You have a user having lifecycle on one side, a user having lifecycle on the different side, then the one application in that version is updating, the other one is not. How do you make that all work together at the same time? Integrations are hard business. And we need to be like having standards like checking for, I don't know, what version is installed, is the connection up and running, do I have, I don't know, how do I do a token update and so on. Very technically, it is so much easier for a software provider to say, I do my own thing, I have it under control, so much cheaper, I have a new feature that I can present. But integrations are hard, and so if we agree to some standards, it would make it significantly easier. An initiative like let's say OpenDesk and also the Nextcloud Hub idea is also helping to or could potentially create standards if those platforms push for it. If they ask, hey, our way is to do the SCIM way, Univention. If our way is the SCIM way to provision users, well, then next time it's much easier to have it. If those platforms that do the user provisioning use that one and really promote it, then every other vendor would follow and implement it. So I really would like to use that panel to pitch that idea.
I mean, if I got your question initially right, you ask what will be the next integration? Who will sit here maybe next year? And to be honest, I can't answer the question. I have no clue. The only thing I can say is we are really open to integrations. So I would basically say you decide which integrations is there, and all the people who are not in the room but are using our software. So it's you who decide, and when you have your favorite software, you ask yourself, why is it not integrated? I mean, as I said at the beginning, for example, at Nextcloud, we really putting a lot of focus on being some kind of platform where people can innovate on top of it. So we make sure that a lot of APIs are there, they are well documented. Even in the company, we have a complete team who focus on the integrations and work together with communities, with other companies to build these integrations. What comes out of this is then always the question what the users want, and especially here at FOSDEM, of course, I'm sure also a lot of developers sitting in the room, what developers want and what they are eager to implement, and that will be there at the end. And Wieland, you talked a lot about the technical challenge, which I completely agreed. I mean, they need to be solved in order to have this good integration at the end of the day. But then again, I have to come back. Sorry if I stress the term too often today, but we are at FOSDEM. That's again the power of open source, right? It's not something, a black box or something where you look at the APIs, and if it's not there, you are lost. If something is missing, if you want to integrate your favorite product or your favorite software project or maybe your own project, and while you're trying to integrate, you find out there's an API missing, just talk to us or to Open Project or to Univention or to XWiki, and I'm sure we are all happy to look at what's missing in the APIs and enhance the APIs or add it. That's how our communities work, right?
Or you do what Wieland did and just did it himself in Nextcloud.
So there is one thing you mentioned, open standards, but there is actually a question: is why don't we have so many integrations between open source software? And one of the things is that every smaller company is very pressured to integrate with the big leaders. Like when you go at a customer, they tell you, "Oh, do you have a connector to Google? Do you have a connector to Microsoft? Do you have this?" So, and then the question is, okay, why not standards? Why are there not more standards? Well, same thing. Like, whatever, if the standard is not implemented by one of these leaders, it's a dead standard. I've known Open Social, which was a very interesting standard to integrate widgets between applications. It was IBM launching it with, you had Atlassian doing it. We did some prototypes with Open Social, and Microsoft didn't implement it. It was dead. Completely dead. Microsoft was not allowing an open social widget. Nobody would build open social widgets. So the standards are great, but if you don't push or make it mandatory for the big companies that are leading the market, that are close monopolist or monopolist, if you don't force them to implement them, you're dead. OpenIDC has been implemented by large providers, and boom, it's very easy for everybody to integrate. You do it, it's very interesting, you're going to do it for the large providers, then it's going to work for all the smaller integrations. So that's one aspect. Now, on what's next, I have a very specific item. I want to pitch my own idea that goes beyond these standards and things. And what I want to pitch is the modularity idea. And I mean, this is something we actually, if you look at our presentation we have about Crystal, because this is one of the big reasons I decided to push, when we decided to push at XWiki for Crystal, is the idea that actually we should rebuild software to be way more modular.
Maybe you can quickly pitch Crystal for people who
so
don't
Crystal
know
is the new wiki UI that can switch backends, switch UI designs, so you could switch UI frameworks. You can modify part of the feature, so basically, and it could be embedded as a web application into another. So it's been made so that it doesn't run as a separate, it won't be able to only run as its own web page, but it could run as a module inside another application at the same time. And actually, one of this idea, I don't want to take the whole credit for actually saying that we should do that, but I listened to a talk by the GT founder, Emil. I think it's 2 years ago, and at FOSDEM, or 3 years ago, I think it was remote FOSDEM, and basically he pitched this modularity idea as one of the future of tech, and I really bought into that idea, is that actually the value of open source is modularity and reuse, and so we need at the application level. So I think this value of modularity, it exists everywhere in the open source world at the library level. So if we take curl, we got the prize, the Open Source Award Thursday. Actually, the biggest value of curl is not curl, it's libcurl, the library that is embedded everywhere in every software. And he built curl, but he built libcurl, he gave to the other people the same feature set that he gives in the curl command line that we all use on our Linux computer, but he gave it to all the people that need a good way to do HTTP in their software. And I think this is the thing, and actually Jitsi is a bit built with that, with Jitsi UI and libjitsi. It doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. Maybe there's another library that's going to be better for doing video conferencing and things like that. But I think, my idea is that we need to push this at a further level, not only at the library level, where you can just talk protocols or stuff like that, but actually you can talk to a UI. So the UI should be modular, and not only the technical capacity. And that's actually what we're trying to do with Crystal, where the UI should be embeddable, and we can change the design system. And so if we want to do a better integration with Nextcloud, we implement the Nextcloud design system in Crystal, and basically the look of Crystal is the same look as the whole Nextcloud suite. And so if we start building the application with that in mind, we're going to go way further in terms of integration in the future. So I think it's a long-term thing. It's not going to happen overnight. But I think we need to think about that level of modularity when we build the next generations of the open source application. So if you're building new application, think really modular in your application, think embeddable, and think to have APIs to connect them.
That's a pretty big picture. You want to respond?
Maybe a quick response to the first part, to the open standard part, because I think it's a really interesting and also topic you can discuss a lot, to be honest. Because I would be a bit more optimistic than you are, to be honest. Because in the beginning, or in one of the previous comments, you mentioned as a bad example Google Talk and Slack, XMPP, where they took some open standard and then extended it, and at some point they no longer used it. So that's always a big dangerous. And if you look at directly at the opposite side of our room, there is the Mastodon booth at the moment. There is a lot of discussion at the moment in the whole social networking area. Should we allow threads to implement the ActivityPub API? Some people welcome it. They say, yeah, that's a really big step to have social networking, really big, federation becoming big. Everybody will do it. And others fear that threats do to the protocol and to Mastodon what Google did to XMPP or Slack did with their IRC integration at the end of the day. So that's always the challenge we're facing here, right? And I would say if you look how many people, how many companies these days using open source and free software. I think no company can live without open source. So I think we can be a bit more positive and more self-confident by ourselves and say, if we have a good open standard where we in the open source world integrate, there's almost no way that the big companies can get around. It doesn't matter if Google, Microsoft, whoever implements in the first place. Let's be a bit more self-confident, would be my opinion, to open standards. These days, I think we can be more self-confident.
Yeah, I think that brings me a bit to the next point. I wanted to ask, like, what are the blockers here? Because you talked a little bit about this in the standards. And you said there's a technical blocker, certain technologies we need to integrate. You talked about like the different ways of like making things more modular. What do you think about these things?
I think they have been mentioned already. I think a good integration comes with an open standard, because then it's flexible. Then it's not a one-way integration between exactly two components, but it's something that works with several components, and it can scale. So if we agree on open standards, that is the key for a good integration landscape. And but there are needs. One of the needs is just being open isn't enough. The standard needs to be implemented. Ideally, there are already libs that implement it and that can be used, so it's easy to adopt to that standard. And there needs to be an adoption rate. Let's put it that way. If the big players do it, it's helpful but risky. but we need to agree on standards. And that's something that brings in a lot of communication and interaction and agreements between many people, and we see in the history, and maybe everybody has this XKCD comic in mind where, okay, the other 10 standards are not well enough, I define 11th one, and then we have 11 incompatible standards. That needs to be avoided. So that's the challenge here. Communication, openness, talk with each other and agree on something good.
Yeah, somehow my mind drifted off into a different area, and that is, you're like, okay, let's say we have the technical integration, no? Like the software can work together. Then we have the question that you asked like two or three rounds before, but do our business models integrate? No? It's like, do our pricing scheme, like for, at the end, you know, like we have organizations, we have a company in the background, and we also have the goal to earn money. So then are they compatible? Like if, for example, Open Project currently has almost a flat rate model, no? Like after 250 users, then it's a flat rate, unlimited. And it's not compatible with Nextcloud, right? Where you don't have this unlimited plans.
We barely start at 250.
Yeah, it also makes sense depending where you start from or where the business grows from. But that makes also sometimes the integration harder, no? To meet and to find each other. And yeah, that's also a learning curve that we need to take there and to learn and experience elsewhere. And then we can really, if we align also on the business side, then we can build this engine that make things grow. Just it's not only the business model. I think there was another one that I just forgot, but maybe you guys remember.
How can we accelerate that?
Yeah, so you were asking what are the biggest blockers. So I think time and money is probably the biggest blocker I see, because in the end we get more and more incentives to actually do it. So then it's a question of all priorities in the roadmap, and then it's limited by just the revenue that all our companies are doing, all the companies and all the people that do open source are doing. I suggested, for example, for NGI to fund specifically integrations, because I felt that integrations are a bit the stuff that is left aside, like because it's not asked directly by the client. They expect them basically, but they don't really go and come and say, oh, I'm going to fund this in your roadmap, or I want this specific integration, because when it's Microsoft that they have, they will ask you to fund the Microsoft integration, not the one with the tool that they might use in 2 years. And so unless they actually have the tools at the same time in the company, it's pretty rare that they would fund the integration. So. And standard is the same thing. The companies never fund standards. I've never seen that really, or maybe as a side thing. So, and I think NGI does a good job actually funding people that work on standards or library with standards, with protocols and things like that. So that's actually great. I think we should thank them for that a lot, because that's really important. We need more protocols. So I just want to be clear. I'm a big believer in standards. I just have a few bad experiences. For example, I can give another bad experience. I participated to Wiki Creole, which is a common wiki language. We had there was a conference in 15 years ago, WikiSim, and all the people that were making wikis, and lots of them open source actually, I think mostly open source. I don't think the proprietary wikis came there. And we talked about wiki syntax, and because there's so many wiki syntaxes, and we actually implemented Wiki Creole. So it was spec'd by a group of people. We implemented it. It was implemented by one or two others, and the Atlassian obviously didn't implement it, and many others didn't implement it, and then one day Markdown came up, and frankly, if you ask me, Wiki Creole was a much better wiki syntax standard than Markdown is. Markdown has a lot of technical deficiencies. We live with them now in our products, it has a lot of technical deficiencies because it's a de facto standard and not at all a standard that people have discussed or thought about with a bit of science to make it the right standard. So and now Markdown is kind of a de facto standard. It's good. So you have these issues. So I love standards, but you also have an issue in the whole process of standards that is not easy. So we should fund these standards more and more. That's a bit my belief. I think on the integrations between the companies, I think maybe one limitation is in our space specifically with the collaboration space is indeed we're against companies that are just lining up everything together. Well, I mean, let's be clear, Microsoft is doing dumping and vente liée, like they sell you, I mean, I've seen prices of the Microsoft stack where you had Office with the wiki with project management that was actually 0.5 euro cheaper than just than just Office. So actually, it was cheaper to have all the other tools than not have them, which makes absolutely no sense. So it's a bundling strategy. They dominate with Office, and so basically they give for free all the rest. And so we live with that type of competition where we have to find, okay, how can we make a whole stack that maybe larger companies can decide to use. But on the technical side, I think it's if we get a bit more money or capacity, we'll end up doing all these integrations, and if we can have standards to do them, that would help. But they're not always easy to do, these standards, from a technical point of view, though. That makes the whole thing more costly.
Yeah, but still, together stronger.
Yeah,
you're saying. Yeah.
I just wanted to add on that and give it a more positive note and regarding standards and so on. And one thing is that there are many examples where open standards were the thing that everybody adopted to. If you look back in the history, like Kerberos and LDAP and HTTP and so on, there are many open standards that forced the big vendors to adopt them. That's one thing. And the other thing, still, even if Microsoft doesn't build things or the other big five, it makes sense for us to have open standards. So there's no, in my point of view, there's no alternative to that, even though the big five might not adopt it, because we can only work together with these open standards. We shouldn't make things complicated.
Right, some of these problems have to be solved in the days before FOSDEM by the more political people, and we have to stick to code, of course, here. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Hey, we have only some minutes left. I thought maybe there are questions in the room, and yeah, that could be interesting. There is already one there.
Yes, so I am for some effort for more integration, modulation, also module accessible for end user, constructed by its own application with collaboration tools. So I see that there is in the free open world a lot of difference between the Unix distributions. It's too many. In this kind of thing, it have to more collaboration. The other example at the other end is Fediverse. The collaboration is huge in this sector, and for me it's important when I see more grave than Microsoft and Google that Elon Musk is buying a lot of things, and Elon Musk in Germany, if he financed the alternative for Deutschland, so it's a real problem.
Yeah, I don't think
sure.
There wasn't much of a question in there.
Yes, my question is to make better for integration. So it's a beginning, but also go further.
Thanks for the encouragement. That's fair enough. Yes.
Thank you. My question is not in the open source scene the storytelling too much for technical? So if you say integration and so, it's it's really necessary. But why does user and normal people don't experience this? Where is the USB stick where I can plug in and see the best management and CRM and Office suite built with open source with your? Why do you not go into the room and plug this everything together and show this very easy to people? So then we don't need the marketing from Microsoft, or instead of making things better and better, just explain and storytell more the thing that's already here.
You're missing a good app store. Is that a good summary? Yes. So, where's the app store? I mean, I know you have an answer. Let's use here. Let's use this thing.
Yeah, so first, I think there is already a lot of good integrations, so we have a lot. But yeah, advertising what exists and that we show and evangelize basically the world with open source. But we do it. We have all marketing and sales teams and that do it. So we do it all the time, but with our limited capacity. Actually, that's where the community does help us a lot and can help us a lot even more. I'm a strong believer that all our users are our best marketing and best demonstrator. Our job is supposedly to be coders and build the applications. And actually other people can talk about what we do. We're super happy when they do. And I'm not asking for free labor, so just to be clear. It's just, we do it to the maximum of the extent that we're able to do it, with the funding that we have. But every time we have €1 more, we have to make a choice whether we put it on technical stuff, on marketing stuff, on sales stuff. It's always tough to make that decision. It's a difficult decision.
I would agree that sometimes we probably think a bit too technical. I think that's maybe that's when we are all technical people, right? All coders. That's where we fell just into it. I would also like to combine this a bit with the question over there, which asked about the distribution and all this different kind, and everybody does their own thing. I mean, there was many years ago already where Ubuntu actually tried to have this one distribution where they decided, okay, I picked the X Windows system for you, I picked the desktop manager for you, and there's this one Ubuntu which comes with this desktop manager and this apps and so on. And what happened? Just a few days later, there came out Kubuntu and Xubuntu, because everybody has, of course, their own opinion, right? What's the best tool and what's the best solution and what's really should be in there? I think that's really the challenge. That's why I think at the end, we never will get rid of about some kind of modularity, which was discussed before, and some flexibility. That's also what we try in Nextcloud, where we come out with Nextcloud Hub, where you have the complete solution with all the features built in, more or less, easy to deploy. But then we provide a modularity, as I said also before, when someone really wants to have a really powerful wiki, then they can use the XWiki integration, or then they can use the open project integration. So while I completely get what you would like to have, and I sometimes would also like to have it, I think in reality it's really difficult, as I said, Ubuntu and other stories in the past showed us already.
FOSDEM edition.
You had something to say. Let's take last question.
At the beginning, you said that developing integration was a good choice because even though you're whole developing softwares, you're not doing exactly the same thing. But does it sometimes happen that when you're developing an integration, for example, there are multiple open source wiki projects or project management that are open source, do you sometimes develop integration with multiple companies or projects to fit into one? Like, let's say, developing an integration for Nextcloud as a wiki, but you partnership with other projects so that you can neutralize the effort?
Maybe if I get the question right, what you describe is a project called OpenDesk, where some colleagues are behind there. That's a project funded by the German government and for German governments, but also publicly available. And that's exactly does that. It combines software here represented by us and other software into one solution and tries to fit one need. But and that goes a bit in the direction of the last question. I think it matches very well the objective to have the German government delivered and many other situations where you need an infrastructure for file and groupware and so on. But it won't fit everybody. And the more complicated an organization is, the more complicated are the needs, and then you might need to exchange things, and then open source has its strengths. And I see it as a strength to have this modularity and the option to exchange things.
I think that's a good ending, because we're ending on diversity as strength. I think that's one of the most open source things you can say. So thank you everybody for joining, watching, listening. Follow-up questions can go to each of them separate. And yeah, have a good rest of the day here. Thank you. Thanks all.